All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to jump right in and tackle a puzzle in the English language that trips up pretty much everyone at some point. Plural nouns. Yeah, it sounds easy. Just add an S, right? Well, as we're about to find out, it's a lot more interesting than that, with twists and turns that tell a story about the history of the language itself.
This right here is the question that sends everyone scrambling. I mean, they look so similar, they sound so similar. How can one little letter difference make them act in completely opposite ways? It feels totally random, I get it. But stick with me because by the end of this, you'll actually see the method to the madness. Okay, first up, the main rule. Before we can get to all the weird and wonderful exceptions, we've got to build our foundation. This is the single most important rule that, honestly, covers most of the nouns you'll ever use. And real quick, just so we're all on the same page, what is a noun? It's simple. It's just a naming word. A word for a thing, a person, a place, anything really. It could be something you can touch, like a cat, or something you can't, like an idea such as love. Got it? Good. And here it is, the big one. The number one rule you definitely learned back in school. For most regular nouns, to make them plural, you just slap an S on the end. That's it. This is the default setting for English plural. And here's what that looks like in the real world. One book becomes 3 books. An apple turns into a whole bunch of apples. It's clean, it's simple, it's beautiful, but, yeah, this is pretty much where the simplicity ends. All right, moving on to our next section, when to add ES. Now we're wading into the first group of exceptions, and this isn't really about breaking the main rule, it's more about adapting it for words that just sound a little different at the end. Okay, here's the key. It's all about sound. If a word already ends in a hissing or a buzzing sound like ch, sh, or x, just adding another S sound would be super awkward to say. I mean, try it. Say church, and then add an S. Churches. It's clunky, right? You need a little extra syllable in there, and that's exactly what the ES gives you. And on this slide, you can actually hear the rule working. Just say them out loud. Church becomes churches. Glass becomes glasses. Box becomes boxes. That little ES acts like a bridge, connecting the end of the word to the plural sound and making it all flow together. Now, words that end in O are a little bit mischievous. The general rule is to add ES, just like with potatoes or heroes. But then you get these rebels over here, like photos and pianos. What's the deal? Well, a lot of the time, these exceptions are words that English borrowed from another language, or they're shortened words, like photo, which is, short for photograph. Okay, you ready? This is where it gets really fun. We are now entering the wild territory of the true rule breakers. I like to call these the shapeshifters of English. These are ancient words that just refuse to play by our modern rules. So one of the most common and coolest transformations is this one. Think of it like a recipe. First, you find a word with that hard F or phi sound at the end. Then you soften that sound by changing the F to a V. And finally, you add the ES. It's a shift you can actually feel in your mouth. And here they are, out in the wild. A sharp knife becomes multiple knives. A single leaf on a tree joins a pile of leaves. It's a really consistent change. Well, most of the time. This is English after all, so you'll still find words like reefs or chiefs that just add an S. You kind of just have to learn the common ones by feel.
And now we have the true originals, the Hall of Famers of weird plurals. These words don't follow any modern rule because they're basically living fossils. They're leftovers from Old English, a time when you made a word plural by changing the vowel inside the word. So there's no trick here, you just have to know them. Man becomes men, foot becomes feet, and yep, our good friend mouse becomes mice.
Some plurals are strange because, well, they weren't originally English words at all. Many of our scientific and academic words were borrowed directly from Latin, and they still play by Latin's rules. That's why one cactus becomes 2 cacti, or a single piece of datum becomes a set of data. And this really does matter, especially in formal or technical writing, where getting these right is a sign you know your stuff.
All right, on to our final section.
We've seen rules, we've seen exceptions, but what if the rule is that there is no rule? This last category is for nouns that don't change one bit. They look exactly the same whether you're talking about 1 or 100. Take a look at this list. You notice a pattern here? A lot of them are animals, right? Especially animals we think of as being in a group or a herd. One sheep, a whole flock of sheep. One fish, a school of fish. For these words, the singular and the plural are exactly the same. So context is king. It's the only way you know if we're talking about one deer or 20 of them.
This brings us to a really important concept called uncountable nouns. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You can't count them individually. You can't have 3 furnitures or 5 informations, because these words describe a whole concept or a mass of something, not individual items.
Now pay close attention to this slide because it is packed with words that people get wrong all the time, even native speakers. You just can't say advices or researches. Getting these specific words right is one of the biggest things you can do to make your English sound totally natural. So, what if you do want to count them? Well, there's a trick. You use a little helper phrase, sometimes called a counter. So instead of saying 2 furnitures, you say 2 pieces of furniture. Instead of advices, you can say some advice or a piece of advice. It's a simple workaround that lets you talk about these things in specific quantities. So when you put it all together, what's the big takeaway here? What's the aha moment? It's that English plurals aren't just a random, chaotic mess. They're a system of patterns. You have the simple S pattern, the hissing ES pattern, the F to V's shapeshifters, and the ancient fossils. Once you learn to spot the patterns, it all starts to make sense.
So there you have it. You've just decoded one of the most confusing parts of English. These rules and their crazy exceptions aren't roadblocks anymore. They're tools in your language toolbox. So the only question left is, what are you going to build with them? What other English language puzzles are you ready to solve now? Thanks for watching.